This is Brass Check, and we're recording this on Saturday, June 19th, 2010, and we are going to be pointing you to an article, very important article by a woman named Rosemary Frei, F-R-E-I, and her background is that she has a Master of Science in Molecular Biology, and she has been a science writer and medical and journalist for 22 years. And in 2016, she realized that she had to be an independent writer. So I hope everybody will support her and her research. So what is the story? Excuse me. The story is we've just gone through the great COVID con, and unfortunately, but we really need to face it, the conclusion that a whole lot of people have taken from this episode is that vaccines saved the day and allowed us to go back to normal. Of course, that's a fraud, but that's how that fraud works. And believe me, there are tens of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people who believe that. So what's next? Well, we have been reminding everybody from day one on this that the very same people who perpetuated this fraud also perpetuated the HIV equals AIDS fraud. And some people may have found that, not directly relevant or boring or, whatever. Well, guess what, folks? They're taking the COVID money and the COVID momentum, and they're declaring that after 40 plus years of never having a vaccine for AIDS, HIV, and if you haven't seen our film, you must see it. It is possibly the most important film that's been released on this whole thing in the last year, because it shows you who all the players are, it shows you what their playbook is, and it shows you how they worked the playbook out for AIDS and how they just applied the same exact methodology of propaganda and fraud to COVID. But now they're going to double back, and after 40 years of not having being able to develop a legitimate vaccine for HIV, they're now going to claim, and they are claiming, that this new technology that saved the day for COVID is going to allow us to make an HIV vaccine. And of course, if you watch the film that we made, you'll know that HIV and AIDS have nothing to do with each other. HIV is a kind of marker, it's a kind of genetic debris, and there were many people that had full-blown AIDS that never had any HIV in them, and there are many people that had HIV that never had AIDS. So the connection is a fraud, very profitable fraud. Tony Fauci and friends pulled $500 billion, that's with a T, trillion dollars out of the Treasury over the last 40 years on bogus HIV equals AIDS research. $500 billion. Nobody notices, nobody mentions it, nobody cares. But it's in our film, so make sure you watch our film on that subject. All right. So I basically told you what it's going to be. And this got started a while back, April 14th, 2020. The mRNA vaccine maker, Moderna, announced that they'd soon be conducting small human trials on their experimental jabs against HIV and the flu. And in case you didn't know, AIDS is one of Bill Gates' special interests. And of course, this has been a massive moneymaker. COVID jabs are topping the all-time charts for medical money making. And the potential market, now I think she is underestimating this. The potential market for HIV vaccines is very large. All right, let me explain this. The whole HIV AIDS scam was perpetuated against two groups of human beings, primarily. One, gay gay males, all right, number one. And then the second group that was targeted were Africans, and then also African Americans. And again, you got to watch the film. The film makes this absolutely critically clear. And I think it's pretty obvious, especially when the AIDS scam was first cooked up, that well, we won't go there. But anyway, those are the two groups that were targeted. So in the COVID con, they basically took the playbook that they used to target gay men and Africans and African Americans and addressed it to all of us and ensnared everybody in their net. So the only flaw with this article, and it's a great article, it's a very important article, it's extremely detailed, it goes into who's involved and how this thing is rolling out, is I think the writer underestimates what the game plan is. Okay, within the if you ever go to Manhattan and go to the West 4th Street subway station, which is sort of at the gateway of the West Village, which is it's a huge population of young gay men. That's just the way it is down there. And so what the drug makers have done is a tunnel that goes from the subway to the street. It's fairly lengthy, and there's ads that run the length of that tunnel. You see that in the subway in a lot of different places. But anyway, in this particular demographic area, the drug makers, the pharma has purchased every single billboard. This was pre-COVID. And what were the ads for? For HIV prophylactics drugs. In other words, take this drug and you can go out and do whatever you want. You'll never have to worry about a thing. And if you're a young person, it's the sensible thing to do. And they have, heartwarming ads of, men with men and women with women. Why women should need this, I don't know. But anyway, it's all about marketing. So the goal clearly has been to target that community, and also with great loving liberal feeling. And of course, in Africa, they just round people up. If you've got tuberculosis, if you've got malnutrition, if you've got parasitic infections, they'll declare that you have AIDS, and they'll put you on AIDS drugs paid for by the federal government. But in any event, they targeted these groups because it was easy. They were marginal. It's easy to target marginalized people. But their goal is for everybody to be on these. That's the one thing I think that's missing from this article, and I think you'll see this happen. They've brainwashed a certain segment of the society into thinking that they need to get HIV tested all the time, and that if they have HIV in their PCR results, sound familiar, then they must get on this lifetime cocktail of Tony Fauci drugs. All right, so now with the new HIV vaccine coming out, they're going to sell this to everyone, especially young people. And it will be considered the sensible thing to do, the right thing to do. Now, if you think this is far-fetched, think about the HPV vaccine, another complete scam. That scam is based on the fraud that the human papillomavirus mutates into cervical cancer. Nonsense. And in any event, not worth the risk of subjecting people to this vaccine. But there are states in this country where they have attempted, and I believe even succeeded, in making the HPV vaccine mandatory for young women. And not just young women, girls, school age, young girls. And I think they're trying to put boys, in fact, I know they're trying to ensnare boys in this net too. The thesis being it's the right thing to do. So if they can sell that scam, they are going to have absolutely no problem selling the HIV vaccine scam to school children. I hate to bring this up. It's not a pleasant subject, but forewarned is forearmed. And as I pointed out been pointing out since day one on this, and maybe I should really articulate this very specifically, the HIV equals AIDS scam not only produced a lot of money, it built a massive infrastructure. It would be an interesting research project for a journalist to just estimate how big the HIV equals AIDS fraud industry is. And I call it an industry because it receives and spends billions of dollars every year, and it employs directly and indirectly tens of thousands of people. I mean, everybody in public health is on the HIV equals AIDS bandwagon. You have to be, or you won't have a job. It goes back to that thing we've been saying about Nazi medicine. One of the things the Nazis did when they took over was they fired all the legitimate, authentic Jewish physicians from their hospital posts and their academic posts and replaced them with Nazi card-carrying members. And that's basically what's happened in public health. If you don't buy the HIV equals AIDS hypothesis, which has proven itself to be wrong 10,000 different ways, you won't have a job in public health. You may not have a job, you probably won't have a job in any kind of a university. So that eliminates academia. You probably won't have a job in administration in public education of secondary and primary school students. You won't be on a school board, or most school boards. What else will you be banned from? You'll be banned from pretty much all public discourse, and certainly any position where you could have influence. So the entire system is rigged to say, not only to say yes to this latest coming madness, but also to impose it. Because remember, they've created the infrastructure to impose any vaccine on any child anytime, or you don't go to school. This is why pre-COVID we did show after show after show after show on this subject, because we saw this coming, and indeed it's here. So anyway, the article is by Rosemary Fry, F-R-E-I. We're going to put a link below. I recommend everybody read it to inform yourself, inform your friends, inform your community. And then also, if you haven't already, watch our film, Fauci's First Fraud. And please share that film. I'm going to, obviously I have a horse in the race, but I think it's tragic that film has gotten 20,000 views, while the Plandemic film, which I don't think ultimately was very helpful, supposedly got 1 billion views. I think that was a little exaggerated by the makers, but I'm going to guess easily 100 million views. And I think if Fauci's First Fraud had gotten even just 1 million views in the early days when it first came out, when it really would have helped, it could have done great things. But anyway, do watch that film and do share it, because it's a very important film, and it truly explains everything. The bottom line, this is a money play, and a money play is also a power play, and we already know who the players are. It's Bill Gates and pharma, and all the minions that he employs, including Tony Fauci. So this has been Brass Check, and please spread the word. It ain't over yet, and there's a lot we can still do. And do support Brass Check. We've got server bills and email bills and tech helper bills, and it'd be nice to be able to pay all of them from subscriber money and not have to go into my own pocket for it.